What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Drone to 1K podcast. I am David Young, your host and founder of Drone Launch Academy. Today on the podcast, we have Chris Dantonio of Philly Drone Shots. He has an Instagram account. I think last time I checked, it's like 14,000 people. He is actually an executive chef by day and a drone pilot by morning and night. And he's done some awesome stuff. He just does this on the side. And he's been crushing it. He has done jobs for companies like Comcast, NFL Films, American Idol. His drone work has been featured in a bunch of places. So really loved talking to Chris. I think this episode is really good to show you about the power of consistency and how Chris stuck with it and just did it for himself, right? And kept building his portfolio. And all these awesome things started happening. So really excited to share this episode with you and enjoy talking to Chris. A few more things before we fully dive into the podcast episode that I wanted to mention. Number one, you know that I love podcast reviews, and I want to hear from you guys. If you do like the podcast, if you don't like the podcast, please leave us a review if you would. And as a thank you for your time, you might have heard me say this before, but I'm happy to send you a free Drone Launch Academy t-shirt. So leave a review, take a screenshot of it, and then shoot it to me, david@dronelaunchacademy.com, and I'll get you a free t-shirt as a thank you for taking the time to do that. So I love reviews. Hit us up with those. It helps other people find the podcast and understand what it's about and if it's for them. So share the love, and I will shoot you a free shirt. Second, this season 3, are doing some special giveaways for each episode. So for the first week that the episode goes live, you have the opportunity to get in to win some goodies. All you have to do is, there should be a link, if you're watching this on YouTube or our website, should be a link below somewhere that takes you to a form that you just have to answer one question about the podcast episode from today, and you'll be entered to win a prize. We pick 5 people each week. We give away a hat, a shirt, a mug, a free course, and a 15-minute coaching call with the podcast guest. So it's really cool and fun. You can rank which ones you want in what order if you get selected. But it gives you a chance to talk to the podcast guest yourself and ask them any questions you have about drone business or what they did, or get advice, or just, shoot the breeze, whatever. It doesn't matter. Or if you just want a shirt, you can pick that too. But to get in on that, just click the link somewhere below this video if you're watching the video. If you're on the podcast, just audio, go to the email that that told you about this podcast episode, and there should be a link there for you to fill that out as well if you're on the audio version of this. Okay, so that's that. One more thing, we have a special thing going on for you guys. We have 2 kind of intro courses. One of them is called Drones 101, teaches you the basics of how drones fly, some flight exercises, just kind of if you're newer to drones, you're wanting to kind of get a feel for it or get started, this is like a really good course for you. Normally it's $50, but I decided like a couple minutes ago just to make it $1 for you folks that listen to the podcast. So if you just use the promo code PODCAST, like PODCAST, podcast, it'll drop the price to $1. So you can find that on our website. Just go to courses, find Drones 101, and when you're purchasing that, use the promo code podcast, and it'll make it $1. So just want to do something nice for everybody that is active and listening to our podcast on a regular basis. Also, we released another new course, another intro course called Mavic Mini 101, and this is a course all about DJI's Mavic Mini. That's like a starter drone. It's around, I think, $350 now that they released the Mini 2, but it's a similar kind of intro course. That's a really good course if you want to understand, hey, is this a good drone for me to buy? What is it? How do I use all the features? How do I fly it? It's basically, we just break down, hey, here's everything you need to know about this drone. Here's how to squeeze all the juice out of it and get the most out of it. So again, if you use the promo code podcast, drops that course to just $1. So want to make that accessible for you all, especially since those are beginner courses and kind of more intro level things. Make that available to you. So same promo code podcast. I might try to link them below too, depending on where you're watching this. So just look around for some links, or just go to our website. Okay, so that's kind of the update on the courses. We have a bunch of other courses too, but I'm not going to get into that now. But wanted to give you that cool promo code deal for those 2 courses. I'm not sure how long I'll leave that up. This isn't like a scarcity tactic, like, oh, get in now. But we'll take it down at some point. But for now, I'll leave it up there so you can get in for $1. Okay, I think that's it on my notes here. Let's go ahead and dive into the podcast with Chris, Mr. Executive Chef / drone pilot who works for huge companies and brands. It's a great combo. So excited to get you in on this podcast and hear from Chris. So we'll take it away. All right, everyone. So welcome to the Drone to 1K podcast, season 3. I believe this is episode 3 of the third season. We have Chris Dantonio, no apostrophe,
Right.
of if you might have seen my Instagram, Philly Drone Shots, or Chris Dantonio aerial photography, drone photography.
No drone photography.
Drone photography. So actually found Chris through Instagram. I was just looking around, saw some of his shots, saw that they were really cool. Looked like he was doing some legit work. And I was like, hey man, if you qualify to be on the podcast, I'd love to have you on. And he's like, absolutely. So we're really pumped to have you here, Chris. Thanks for coming.
Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And I just found out Chris was actually like 20 minutes from my house a month ago, and I didn't realize it, or else we probably would have linked up.
No idea. It's a shame we made the connection too late as usual. It's always hindsight in 2020.
So next time,
Yep.
next time come down.
Time.
But for those of you familiar with the podcast, you know how this goes. But if you're kind of if this is your first episode, let's say you're working for the most recent episode the way this works is the only people we have on this podcast are people who own what I call successful drone businesses. So not only do we have people who are doing it full time, making really good money, we try to have people on who are maybe doing it as a side gig or a part-time job or whatever. So, because some people, they like their day job and they like doing that, but they also like drones and they'd rather their hobby pay for itself, so there's a kind of a spectrum. So if you're new, the requirement we have is that you're making at least $1,000 a month with your drone business. Because I figured if you're making $1,000 a month, you're doing something right, even if you're doing it kind of part-time.
Oh, sure.
You're not just like a total newbie. So you have something that you can share with the group. And from talking to Chris, he's definitely over that mark. So anyways, I'll shut up and I'll let Chris talk here. But Chris, why don't you give us just a quick intro about yourself and like when your kind of drone journey first started, how you got into drones.
Sure. I mean, I suppose I probably got in a little late, as you would say, because I started probably about 4 years ago now. I'm 43, so I'm a little later than most of the people that I follow on Instagram that are doing this seem to be, in their 20s and 30s. So I consider myself kind of an old head. But I literally got into it kind of by accident. My parents bought me at the age of, I think it was 38, a little toy drone that had a crappy little camera on it. And we flew it for like a week and broke it. And then we're like, all right, well, we need a little better one. So we went out and bought like $100 drone, and we broke that in about a month. And we're like, all right, fine, we got to go get like a halfway decent drone. Bought a DJI Phantom 3 standard, was my first like a real drone.
Nice.
And started taking pictures around Philly, literally just as a hobby. We just really enjoyed it because I grew up around photography. My father taught photography at a local high school, Downingtown High School, outside of Philadelphia. So I grew up in dark rooms and around pictures all my life. I can remember having the background set up in my living room, and he would do portraits in the living room.
Cool.
So photography's always been a part of my life, and to be able to do it with a drone and be able to show people things in the city, especially that you didn't even know were there. One of my first shots was of the Philadelphia Art Museum of a small spire that only stands about 3 feet tall. And I shot just behind it with the city and the parkway behind that. And people were all asking, where is this statue? I said, actually, it's only a little 3-foot thing, and it's on the top of the Philadelphia Art Museum. So that was kind of my first like, oh, wow, I can show people things that are very rarely seen from the ground level or whatever. And it just intrigued us more. And so being able to show people on things on new levels was very intriguing to me as a photographer all my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We kind of worked our way up through the platform, and inevitably, I started an Instagram account, which has been a huge godsend because it's free. It doesn't cost any money to do. You put your account up, and hopefully, with good work and hard work, you get followers. And we've been very blessed in that regard. We just hit 10,000 a couple months ago, which to me personally,
congrats.
I just couldn't believe it. To me, that's incredible that 10,000 people follow us. So, like I said, inevitably people were asking about pictures. And so I was thinking, you know what, I may have to get licensed, because I knew in order to sell pictures, you need to be licensed. So sure enough, I went out, I bought a study guide and studied for about 6 months and took the test. Thank God I passed on my first shot, and it's because of the study guide. I did really well. I got 3 questions wrong. So for those of you thinking about, should I get a study guide? I highly recommend it. Now there's a lot of free options, and we might get into that later. But anyway, study guide recommended. I passed the test the first shot, and the business kind of started.
Awesome.
Like I said, almost by accident. It was never intended to be a business, but it just kind of happened.
Well, that's kind of nice. It was something that was a passion that you really enjoyed and seemed to be getting traction.
For sure.
And yeah, that's great. So what year was it that you got that first Phantom 3 standard?
That would have been 16,
Okay.
2016.
Yeah. And then when did you decide, hey, I guess Part 107 kind of came out late 2016. So when did you decide like, hey, I'm going to get my Part 107 and like, let's get rolling on this?
By the time that happened, I started studying in 2017 and took the test in very early 2018.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So
About two
kind of,
years when I first got my first hobby drone, nice photography drone, to when I got licensed was just about 2 years, probably a
gotcha.
little.
And then about another, what, 2.5-ish years to now?
Yep,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Cool. Now, I don't want to jump too far ahead in the story, but just for some context, right now, do you do drones as your full-time gig, or do you have a full-time or other like kind of supplemental income to go along with your drone business?
I thought it was interesting that you said that to begin with. It happens to be a part-time thing for me. And listen, if it ever got to the point where I was making, tons of money doing this, I would probably leave my day job. But that's really far off. I mean, you've got to be banking six figures to cover, what my health insurance and my job
Sure.
give me on a daily basis. So for me, it is a part-time thing, very much so.
Yeah.
I am actually an executive chef. I have a culinary degree from the restaurant school in Philly.
Awesome.
And I've worked for some of the best restaurants in Philadelphia, for some of the best restaurateurs. Steven Starr and Michael Schulston were my former employees. But I happen to find a job now that allows me to do the drone thing. I'm an executive chef for a pretty elite private school outside of Philadelphia. So I basically run a restaurant and a coffee shop on the campus of school, and I work Monday through Friday, 6 to 2.
Wow, that's awesome. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in like the afternoon and the evening time to do all the drone work
Incredible.
too.
I'm so very blessed and lucky to have the job that I do that allows me to do this. Like you said, nights and weekends are perfect for drone work because that's usually when people want it done.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. The best time to
it's
shoot anyways. You got the kind of like evening, kind of like twilight. Yeah,
Yes, golden hour is key to most of what we do, either morning or night. So
yeah,
it has really let the business blossom as it has, and to get some of the bigger clients that we've had and been lucky enough to get, just because I have the perfect job for it. If I was working as a normal chef in a restaurant, this wouldn't be as possible or as feasible as it is now.
yeah. And another thing that's nice, everybody says, you hear a lot of people like, oh, I just want to be a drone pilot full time. And like I said, that's great if you can do that. But
Absolutely.
sometimes it's nice to have something, because I remember even with Drone Launch Academy, right? When I was starting this, I worked, I used to be an accountant, right, for the government. So it's nice to have something that's, you know, at bare minimum, it covers your bills, it pays your insurance, it
Pay for
does
your
that
bill.
stuff. And you can have the freedom to kind of experiment and pursue these other things without having the pressure to make like immediate income. You can kind of maybe have time to do things the right way and maybe build some relationships and do some of that stuff. So there's nice. I mean, on the flip side, there's, sometimes pressure is good to get it going, but you don't want so much overwhelming stress that you're just going to crumble, what I mean?
No,
So
especially if it is a secondary job, you're adding stress to an already, probably stressful day job in
sure.
addition to your family and everything else we have going in our lives. So, yeah, it can be extraordinarily stressful. It's also nice when you have it as a part-time, you can be choosy and pick and choose what jobs
Sure.
you may or may not want to do
Yeah.
because your next, mortgage payment isn't relying on that.
Right.
But
But
it also, I haven't bought a drone with my own money in at least 2 years.
when you say my own money, you mean like your
I mean, my
restaurant, regular
personal
income?
money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the business money has paid for all of our
Yeah.
equipment. My Canon, T7i DSLR camera, and the last two drones I bought were both with business money as
And
as business expenses.
yeah, I was gonna say, and it takes off your taxes, and it's great.
Absolutely.
So sorry, I didn't mean to jump way ahead.
No,
I
no,
just
no, no
I just
worries.
wanted to get some context since you and I are kind of meeting for the first time here too. Anyways, so let's jump
Yeah.
back. So you got your Part 107 license. You love photography. People are showing interest. Things seem to be kind of moving along. So we're like early 2018. Let's pick it up
Yes.
there.
Exactly. So we were going through 2018, and I got a message via email through a follower on Instagram who worked for American Idol. She was a show producer for American Idol, and she happened to be from Philadelphia, so she was already aware of my work. And I should say our work. It's not just me. My two brothers actually do this with me.
Okay, cool.
So it is three of us all together. So they inquired about our work, and she was a big fan, and happened to have the main producers of the show reach out and say, "Hey, listen, we're doing some shooting in the city of Philly. We're actually just going to be shooting the bus in and around the city of Philly for promotional use for the show. It'll be in the commercials. It'll be in the show itself. Are you interested in doing that?" And of course, that was our first real big job. That was our first real job, not even big, just the first real gig we had was American Idol. I mean, talk about.
And they just found you on Instagram.
Literally, just because the show producer was from Philadelphia, she knew of my work and suggested it. And so they were, rather than fly somebody out from California who doesn't know the air regulations or what goes on in the city to fly, they go out and they find pilots in the respective cities they're going to and have them shoot it.
And she knows you're good because she can see your stuff.
Yep, she could point it out to them and say, "Hey, look, this is what he does. I think he's good. I think he'd be a good fit." So I had to jump through a lot of hoops to get the job. I actually had to become a member of the International Cinematographers Guild Local 600 Union.
Okay.
I don't know if you know what that is, but that's basically—
I'm not familiar. Fill us in.
All the guys with cameras that are shooting movies and drone footage for movies and major network television are more than likely, if it's in the contract, shooting for the ICG Local 600, which is based out of New York but has sub-offices in a lot of cities. Philly doesn't happen to be one of them, but New York is close enough that that's my home. That's who I use to communicate with. So I actually had to reach out to them and see if they would accept me in as a member so I could shoot for American Idol. And they were gracious enough to do so.
Could they say no?
They could have easily said no, but I think their look at it was, we don't have any members in Philly that are drone pilots. So it was beneficial in their eyes to have a pilot in Philly. And for me, it could be beneficial down the road for future work.
Do you have to like pay them a fee or anything, or how does that work?
I do pay quarterly dues. So it is something that you have to figure into your business model. And is it worth it? You know, how much work are you actually getting from the union?
Is it expensive?
It is almost $400. I think it's $400 for a half a year, so it might be $800 a year. It's not necessarily cheap.
But if the job you're getting is big enough, then you know
exactly. It's quite a bit. And American Idol paid us for an entire day work, which was nice. That was a big check.
Nice.
They hired us for the entire day, so it was a wonderful experience. It was a lot of work. I mean, it was show up at 6 a.m. and we worked till 7 p.m. that night, and we took an hour lunch break. But we were next location, get the drone out, charging batteries in the bus.
I was about to say, you probably went through a lot of batteries, huh?
Yeah, luckily I had 3, and that seemed to be just enough to be able to get us, you know, I had 2 charging while we're using one, and I'd pull one off. I mean, it was a constant rotation, and thank God we had the bus to charge in. I had a portable charging station that ran off a car battery, but it was too hot. It wouldn't work. 100 degrees outside. So just some of the things that you have to deal with when you're working with a television company, they don't want to hear what the problem is. They just want to know that you fixed it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
all
awesome.
they care about. So it was high stress, but very high reward. I came home from a vacation, and literally the 3rd shot of the opening of American Idol was our shot.
That's cool, man. And talk about like a resume builder for you just right out of the gate. You know what I mean?
It was huge, because then when subsequent clients came, like Comcast, because they're now one of our clients, that helped, because they knew that we had already worked for American Idol. So they knew there was at least a certain amount of professionalism and that we were going to get the job done for them. And it's worked out. I've had an ongoing relationship with Comcast. They've used us several times.
That's awesome. So, okay. So you got the job with American Idol.
Indeed.
Were you just shooting the content for them and handing it over, and their guys were editing it and doing all that stuff?
Yeah, and in my experience, believe it or not, when I'm shooting for most of the major jobs I've done, that's the case. I'm giving them raw footage, and they have somebody in their organization that handles all of the editing, cutting, and doing everything with it.
Gotcha.
That was the case for Comcast. That was the case for American Idol, as well as NFL Films. I literally handed NFL Films the SD cards. They gave me 4 to use, and I handed them all back to them at the end of the day.
Nice. Okay, cool. kind of makes it a little bit easier on your part. You just make sure you get the right get the right shots, and then that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Editing can be very difficult trying to realize their vision. So when I don't have to
Right.
do any of that, it is wonderful.
That's awesome. Now, so for that job, for that American Idol job, were you using your Phantom 3 standard, or had you
So
upgraded?
I had gotten the Phantom 4 Pro at that point, and
Yeah.
I have the Obsidian, so the black version, and I
Mhm.
had just literally that week got the Mavic 2 Pro in.
Mhm.
They
Gotcha.
wanted the 60 frames per second in 4K, so I had to use the Phantom 4 Pro.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. And so you got that job, pretty sweet. You delivered it. I'm assuming they paid you. You
They
got that
did.
money in the door. What happened next?
Then the next person to call was actually Comcast, and they wanted to purchase rights to footage. So they
Okay.
weren't just hiring me for day. They wanted to purchase already shot footage for it was not exclusive use, but unlimited use.
Okay.
So
Where-
they weren't saying that I could never use the footage again, but they
mhm.
were saying we want to be able to use it as much as we can.
Yeah, like royalty free, basically.
Pretty much, yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I
How did
had to.
they how did they find you? Was that through Instagram or is that something else?
Sure enough, and I'll tell you now, I've been very lucky in that every job we've had, big or small, has all found us through Instagram in one way or another. Either they were told to go to our Instagram account and then to our website, or they were following us on Instagram and asked us to do work for them.
Wow. So I would say you would recommend to people to start an Instagram account.
I really would. And I know it's kind of, I don't want to say becoming cliche, but it's, everybody does it, but it is free advertising. My website costs me money. You know what I mean? I have to
Yeah.
pay for that, the licensing of the username, the name and everything.
The domain and all
It's not a lot of money, but it adds up to
that.
$100 or so a year.
Sure.
So, that stuff I have to pay for. Instagram, totally free. You can post as much as you want, put 30 hashtags on it and tag some people in it, and the key is getting reposted. So yes, I think it's a really smart business tool that doesn't cost you any money. So when you're starting out, it's a great way to get your name out there.
That's awesome. So Comcast is just somebody who was it a specific person from
Was
Comcast that reached out to you? How did that work?
he happened to be a higher up in Comcast, and he said, listen, I've been following this guy for a while. I think his pictures and videos are going to be perfect for what we're trying to do with them, which was on their basically marketing on different platforms. So on their web, on their Instagram, on, whatever. But definitely they said most of it would be for their website.
Was Comcast like a Philadelphia based? I don't know much about
Yep,
Comcast
yep.
other than I know that they're
Our
cable.
two highest skyscrapers are Comcast buildings.
Okay, so those are big. So Comcast is a big corporation,
Their
like
headquarters, yes.
headquarters. Okay,
Yep, yeah. And
and what
they're a
other guys?
worldwide company.
Yeah, yeah, they're humongous.
They're
Uh,
massive.
and they just happened, and so one of their higher ups was just happened to be following you on Instagram because I mean I was looking around. You post a lot of really cool pictures of Philly, and you just kind of make it a point to just go shoot cool stuff around town.
Yes, all the time. And most of it is sunrise. So we start I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're in the city at 5. So
Hmm.
that's like 45 minutes before sunrise,
Just set
to
up
get
to
those crazy colors coming up on the buildings. Cause it happens, well before sunrise, about a half hour
hmm.
before. And that's a half an hour before is when you can start flying legally. So if you
Right,
don't have waivers. So
right.
once that half hour hits, boom, we're up and taking pictures of the reflections, and it makes for dramatic photos. It really
How
does.
often are you going out and getting photos at sunrise?
We used to go, and this was I'd say over the last 2 years, we would go at least twice a month, usually 3 times a month on a
And
weekend.
just and so weekends, 2 or 3 weekends a month, just getting out there, just shooting a bunch of stuff, trying to get some good shots.
For our portfolio, absolutely, just for ourselves, with no particular client in mind and no particular shot in mind, just going up and getting cool different angles of the city.
And most of your just kind of photography training was just from growing up, being around here. You didn't go to school for
I
photography
did
or anything
not know
like
enough
that,
for
right?
photography,
Yeah.
strictly culinary arts. So no, it's all just what I've learned. And another good tool, being Instagram being a good tool, is learning from other photographers that you follow and follow you. It's an incredible wealth of knowledge on there from some very talented people. I don't even consider myself a good photographer compared to some of the people that are on there. I mean, they're just, and some of these guys work for, magazines and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's incredible, if for nothing else, than to just get ideas for pictures, maybe in your city or
Sure.
whatever the case may be. But you can certainly get advice. Most of them are very open about, giving advice
Yeah.
for a particular shot.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really kind of. I mean, I'm kind of inspired, like listening to it, thinking for people who are saying, who might feel like it's futile to go out and just take pictures and just put them up. Like, oh, it's not going anywhere. It's not doing anything. But the fact that you're dead. It sounds like you're dedicated. You're serious. You're dedicated. You're consistent about it, and you were putting that up and collected enough people paying attention to you and started landing these jobs.
And it was
I
worth
think that's really, really cool that you're kind of showing that, hey, you consistently put up good stuff and get more followers. People
it.
find you and hire you.
Yeah, they will.
So have you ever done, just quick, just ever?
Because most drone pilots can't say that. And it's only because I have a career that, I do pretty well. And I've been a chef for most of my adult life. I started cooking at 16. So I've worked, and I got a degree for a reason. So I'm lucky enough to have the job to fall onto. So I don't want to recommend that for everybody. You might want to go out and put yourself out there. But for me personally, no.
And I think, again, to caveat, for people who have listened to all these episodes, right, there are so many different, what do they say? There's a bunch of ways to skin a cat. Or I don't know. That sounds like a gross analogy. You know what I'm saying? It's like I've heard so many different, obviously there's kind of common threads, but there are so many different paths. Some people are very like, hey, I'm going out, I'm cold calling, I'm going out, and maybe that ends up being, I think you froze a little bit.
Oh, there you are. Yep,
sorry.
there you are.
I'll just have to
No
clip
worries.
that part out. As I say, there's some people who are, maybe they got a sales background and they're like, I'm going to go cold call and reach out and do all that stuff. And maybe that speeds up the process, or maybe that's kind of, they're comfortable. But I think it's just what I'm trying to paint the picture of. It's nice for people to know that that's not the only way that can ever be done. You know what I mean? Like maybe your route is you can afford to have the patience to let this build up over time because you have a stable income. But at the same time, you don't have the pressure of having to go out and knock on doors or whatever. And you're getting these pretty huge clients just by, consistently going out and probably doing what you really just enjoy doing anyways, taking photographs with your, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Because we would be out there shooting regardless. I mean, if I had 1,000 followers or less, I would still probably be out there shooting that much because we love it. It makes it that much easier. They always say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So that's what this business, I should say, is to me. It's not, to me, it's not work. It's all fun.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you mind me saying, we can cut out, but it's a 5-figure side business for you, like a pretty decent 5-figure side business for you at this point. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, so it's nice. That's nice that this has happened that way. So, all right, so let's keep going a little bit. So you've got American Idol, and then Comcast reaches out to you. What is like the president of the United States reaching out to you and all these other people?
Luckily, we haven't gone that far. Or luckily, sadly, we haven't quite gone that far. Because I'd love to fly in DC, but that's a whole other thing. You need his clearance just to do it. But no, so Comcast was great because they were buying rights to footage, both video and still. So that was a very large check. I mean, that was a massive payday. So to buy rights is, if anyone ever approaches you, you have to price it right and you have to put some consideration into it, but it's a big deal.
Give someone, I mean, I don't know how much you're allowed to disclose, but can you give us?
I can talk about it. I'd hate to feel like I'm bragging or anything. That was that was a $6,000 check.
Dang. So listen, just a quick caveat, brag as much as you want, because one of the things people love most on this podcast is specifics and numbers. I just don't want to necessarily pry.
It doesn't bother me at all.
But the more you want to share, trust me, it's not bragging. It inspires people to know what's possible. So as many numbers as you want to throw out, please have that.
Yeah, Comcast was a $6,000 check, and they bought 5 still photographs and they bought 5 video clips.
How long were the video?
They said it didn't matter. I gave them about 15 to 30 seconds in each one, and they said, well, we'll use what we want out of each one and crop out what we don't. So So I sold each video. They wanted an individual price and a price for a package of 5 and 5. The
Uh-huh.
individual price I gave them was 500 per still and 1,000 per video clip. And I said, if you want the whole lot of them, 5 and 5, I'll give it to you for $6,000.
And
They
they were
didn't
like,
bat an eyelash. I mean, he didn't even freaking be like, well, no. He was like, cool, I'll write you a check.
that's awesome.
That was
And how
it.
did you come up with those numbers? Were you just
I
like,
did a lot of research as to, first of all, what rights I was giving up to them, which was
okay.
not exclusive, but unlimited. So,
Hmm.
meaning I could still use the footage. If it would have been exclusive, where I was never allowed to use that footage, that number would have been more than double,
Mm.
because I'm forfeiting all future profit from that footage. And some of it was very unique.
Hmm.
So if it was unlimited and, they would own the rights, that would have been a different story. So they got unlimited access to it. So I went online and did a lot of research as to what, like, Getty Images charges for a single image.
Hmm.
Now they're a little bit cheaper than that, but I figured I was dealing with Comcast, so I had some wiggle room. And so I came up with the individual of 500 and 1,000 for video. And then I figured, okay, I have to give them some sort of deal here. So I cut 1,500 off the total for the $6,000.
I mean, and I think that's like you're saying, that's pretty smart, thinking about who your client is, because there's some people on the podcast who, they shoot for realtors that are just starting out and they'll haggle over $25, right? Whereas sometimes we tell them, hey, it's a little bit easier if you want to be in the real estate world, go after some of these commercial property owners where, a couple $1,000 isn't really anything to them as far as a marketing budget goes. And then for you, this is even on a way bigger scale. Well, Comcast is
Yes.
multi-billion-dollar company. I mean, they could accidentally like lose $6,000, as they're walking in and wouldn't even realize it. So
Not even down an eyelash. Yep.
yeah. So, but it's good for you to make sure you're doing your research, knowing your customer, valuing
It's
it.
extremely important.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is extremely important to go online and look up things. Like I said, you can use common websites like Getty Images and just see what they're charging. Talk to friends in the photography industry who you will meet through Instagram. But it is something you have to put a lot of consideration to, is pricing, even your hourly rate and what you charge for an entire day. Now, you
Yeah.
need to think that out. What is your service worth to you, first of all?
So at this point, like for American Idol, what did you charge them for a day rate? Again, if you're cool sharing numbers.
No, absolutely. Because we were just starting out. Our daily rate at that point was 1,500 a day.
Okay. And that's just, hey, you give me all day, shoot as much as
All
you
day
want.
shooting, 8 to 9. I said 10 hours at the most. I understand if we go over a little bit, and we
Gotcha.
did a little over. But still 1,500 for a day, I thought was pretty reasonable.
Sure.
Uh,
Especially as your first job, it's $150 an hour. Yeah.
to me, that was a lot of money for a
And you don't
secondary
even
job.
do any of the editing.
My
Yeah.
next drone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I think this is a great combo. I'm really enjoying this. So we
Good.
got sorry, American Idol, Comcast, and then let's go from there.
So then NFL Films reaches out, and it was one of the photography directors for NFL Films, and they just so happened to be located in Cherry Hill, New Jersey,
Hmm.
just right across the river from us. I mean, literally from my house, it's probably 45 minutes to
Okay.
where NFL Films is located. So their headquarters is close to me. And he had reached out through Instagram and said, hey, we have this new show coming out on Epix, which is one of the pay channels,
Hmm.
with Rich Eisen hosting. And it's going to be called The Grind. And we want some footage for the opening of the show, but we want it of the NFL Films building.
Hmm.
So can you come out and do a shoot at NFL Films building? And I said, sure. I'd love to. So they had me come out and do a bunch of footage. Like I said, they gave me 4 SD cards and said, here, we're going to use these and we're going to shoot for, I think we were there for 3 hours total shooting. Um, and we shot all kinds of stuff as the sun was setting. We got all kinds of angles of the building, and stuff rising up over trees behind the building, and all kinds of crazy shots. And it was cool because I got to work with some of the typical cameramen for NFL Films, and these guys really know what they're doing. I mean, these
Hmm.
are very professional, gentlemen who have been shooting some of the most important sporting events of our time. So they really know what they're doing. And to work with them was really cool because he knew exactly what he wanted. He was able to give me direction as to what he was looking for
Hmm.
this, with no question or ambiguity as to what he was looking for.
That's nice. It's
And
kind of like, so like, as far as like angles and, hey, let's
yep,
rise up and get
yep.
this. Okay.
I want a 360 pan over this way. I want you to come in high and come down lower underneath that gate. And I mean, he knew exactly what he wanted, and it makes it so much easier on us as pilots when we can be directed almost like a film director
Sure.
telling us what they want.
Well, it's
Because
not like
I can
a,
plot it all day, but making someone else's vision come to reality is difficult.
yeah, yeah. No, that's really nice because then it's not like you're going like, hey, make me a promo, but you make it and they're like, oh, well, can we actually do this
Right. I
instead?
wanted this angle, or
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. No, that's great. So NFL Films, again, they just they just reach out to you randomly on Instagram. Like, so is this how these big networks find people to shoot for them? They just go on Instagram and find people?
It's funny. American Idol, I lucked out because a producer happened to follow me. That one was just, I want to call it dumb luck, because she just happened to be from Philly and happened to be following me for
Oh,
like a year.
and you're consistently posting good stuff, so it's not totally dumb luck, you know?
True. So you're right. I did work, and I don't want to make it sound like I didn't work for it. We were out
Right.
all those weekends shooting constantly. So, but yeah, the other two, I was really shocked, especially with Comcast, that such a high up was following my career, and then not only that, but wanted to buy some of our footage. Wasn't even hiring us for a job. Liked some of the stuff we had already done so much, he wanted to purchase it for their use. That was mind-boggling to me.
That's
Still
awesome.
is. It
Yeah, that's
still is.
great. So, so you got the NFL Films. I'm assuming that went well. Did you do like a half day rate, or how did they pay you for that?
I really couldn't believe this. I said it's probably only going to end up being like a half day. So I was like, we could do, a half day rate. And I was like, if we're there a little longer, we'll work with you. And he wrote back one sentence, said, oh, just charge us the full day rate. 1,500 is fine.
So you got $1,500 to be there for
For,
3 hours and
for
hand them
3 hours.
4.
If you include my drive there, it was 4 hours.
Wow, that's awesome, man. It's awesome.
So yeah, it goes to show you what dealing with the larger companies, they don't really think much about it because it's in their budget. You know what I mean? They think about that when they're doing
Yeah.
these massive programs, and yeah.
Well, and I think an important distinction too is, you're dealing again. I hate to go back to the realtor example, but like you go back to someone like a realtor, something like that, right? Where if they're hiring you, it's money literally out of their pocket to
Yeah.
you, right? So there's more like contention there about like haggling this and that. Whereas if you're NFL Films, they're like, hey, cool, the budget for putting this production together is, 3 million. I don't know. I'm not a movie guy, but whatever, X number of millions of dollars, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
And for them to say, cool, well, we need a drone guy, we needed this guy, we needed this guy. Cool, the drone guy is going to be $1,500. I mean, percentage wise to their budget, it's like, it's just nothing.
Yeah, minuscule. So
Yeah.
it is nice to work with them when you have that luxury. But
Yeah.
then you have to be mindful when you're on the other end of the real estate person who's paying you out of their pocket. So it is a tough line to walk, and pricing, because this is all new and up and coming, is all over the board.
Right.
But there's certainly plenty of research you can do to do, sufficient pricing for what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a quick caveat. I mean, a lot of you listeners probably listen to some of the podcasts we have with real estate, but most of the successful real estate people in the real estate area that we know have found success by kind of being affordable, still like charging, but they're affordable and they do high volume for a couple of like key relationships that sell a lot of houses. You know what I mean? And
Right. And it's important.
yeah, yeah. So that's us. So you've had some of these people reaching out to you for licensing footage, taking footage. I mean, how many? It sounds like you're getting pretty good kind of per gig pricing. I mean, about how many jobs are you flying a week? And again, you said you've got the luxury of being able to say no, especially given that you've got a full-time job and things like that. But about how many jobs do you fly a month?
So per month, I would say, let's say this month, for example, I have, it depends. So jobs this month, I have 3 lined up, but one job is shooting a commercial for Land Rover Jaguar of Westchester, the local dealership. And I've already done 2 shoots, and I still have 1 more to do for them. And that's not including the editing that I have to do. So this is probably a $1,500 job by the time I'm done, but it's a commercial from start to finish that works. So I have 3 different flights this month just for that one job. I'm going literally tonight to shoot for a local brewery who wants some footage in a park. So I tend to average, I would say, 2 or 3 jobs a month, but sometimes those jobs have multiple flights.
Sure. Okay. And it sounds like typically those jobs are, pay you pretty decently, right?
For the most part. I mean, you figured it this way. Right now, my pricing is increased a little bit. So my
Sure.
hourly
Yeah.
rate is 300 an hour. My daily rate is 2,000.
Okay.
But I'm giving the guy I'm doing the brewery happens to be a friend of a friend. So I said, I'll give you a deal. We'll do 1 hour and I'll give it to you at my old rate. So I'm doing today's job for $250 just
Gotcha.
to go down and shoot for the guy for an hour. Actually, it'll be less. It'll probably be a half an hour.
No, that's awesome. And how did you? And again, people. One of the biggest questions is, how do I find clients? How do I find work? Right. So, how'd you land the Jaguar commercial?
A lot of things will come from family members or people you knew in high school. It really makes it, if you're active on Facebook, it's good to get it out there that you're doing things with drones now. Because the Land Rover Jaguar came from a high school friend who is now the sales manager there, and he
Hmm.
had talked to the GM saying he had wanted a commercial, and he was like, "Well, I know this guy who does drone work." So literally, it was a friend from high school who happened to know I was into this because I post on Facebook constantly as well, and
Hmm.
that's how I got the job.
That's awesome. So again, power of just social media, getting the word out that you're the drone guy.
It is incredibly powerful and free. I mean, it doesn't cost you a dime, and just to get it out there, you'll be surprised. Sometimes a family member, I'm doing a job for a family member right now, just of still photography, because their place is right next to an airport, so I can't fly there. But I'm
Hmm.
taking still photos, and that came just because she's my cousin and needed her job was looking for a photographer.
Awesome. That's great.
So you'd be surprised. It comes from the strangest of places sometimes.
That's so funny. And real quick, just to comment on your airport thing, I was contacted about a job for some warehouses, photography for some warehouses, and it was literally on the same street as the airport. It's like I looked, it's like runway,
Yep.
airport, right?
Same one as this one.
But I thought, shot in the dark, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it through. And there wasn't Lance, which is like instant authorization
Yep.
at this airport. I thought I'll just throw it through FAA drone zone, see what happens. I got approved almost instantly to fly at least up to 100 feet.
Right. Yeah.
So, anyways, I don't know if you tried it, but I'm gonna say it might be worth a shot at least to toss it in there.
That's actually a good idea. I've tried to unlock on the computer with DJI's geo zones where you can unlock certain ones, but
Mhm.
every time I've tried it, when I get to the location, it doesn't work. So I'll have to try what you just
Yeah,
mentioned.
if you go to FAA drone zone and get the authorization for that time for that location, you have to have your Part 17 license, obviously.
Right. Of course.
Then you can work with DJI. Sometimes you have to send them an email to get them to
Oh,
unlock your stuff and just
right.
send them like a copy of your thing. So
Copy
it
of their.
takes a little bit of planning, but just toss it out there. If anybody does have a job right next to the airport, unless it's like at the end of a runway where the planes will be
Right.
descending for the landing, probably not going to do that. But if it's off to the side or something like that, typically the airplanes are flying their traffic patterns 1,000 feet and above. So as long as you're kind of a little bit lower, you might be able to get approved. So,
Right.
um,
Good to
okay,
know.
cool.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I was recently doing the same thing, so I figured I'd just share the tip. So, so that's awesome. So you're getting those clients, and it sounds like you were just posting, on social media and getting this stuff. So maybe let's dive into that. I know we don't have a ton of time left. I don't want to keep you on here forever, but I just feel like this would be good tips for people when
Mhm.
you are building your Instagram following. Obviously, it pays to have really good photos that are worth sharing, but
Definitely.
and do you have any strategies when you're posting on Instagram? Are you just hitting that check like also post to Facebook, or are you kind of doing them independently or what?
I actually will. I don't hit the post to Facebook every time because I actually do have a separate Facebook account just for the drone business. My Instagram, I do not have a personal account. Philly Drone Shots is me. I mean, that's the only
Hmm.
Instagram account I have.
Is that
So
technically a business Instagram, or is it just only hooked up as personal?
I have it listed as a business, I think. I'm
Okay.
pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I just never started a personal one because this one started to take off, and I was
Sure.
like, well, all I'm ever going to do is show my photography on here anyway.
Yeah.
Let's just leave. So I did. Um, so anyway, usually I will go on and post to Facebook as well, just because it's so easy. You click that little thing and it puts it up there as well.
As far as like the whole like post to my Facebook, or you'll just
Right,
go separately and post. Yeah. Yeah.
right. No, I will. Most of the time, I will post it directly to my Facebook, my business Facebook account as well.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Gotcha.
it's just
And
handy. So.
and is there anything like tips for people as far as when you're posting your photos, stuff you're saying, hashtags you're using? Do you have any type of strategy, or are you just kind of winging it?
With Facebook, I don't do that. Well, if I'm posting to Instagram and Facebook, it automatically puts all the hashtags
Sure.
and tags on there automatically. The hashtagging and tagging is extremely important with Facebook because it's how you get seen, even with little followers. So if you're just starting out and
Are you
you only
talking
have,
about with Facebook or Instagram?
or I'm sorry, Instagram.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah.
So tagging and hashtagging and tagging other accounts, like large accounts in the city you might live in. For us, it's like Visit Philly and the local news organizations, 6ABC, NBC 10, Discover PHL, Iggers Philly, which is an Instagram thing. So you're going to tag all those accounts, and then you're going to put hashtags, things like Game of Tones. Photo of the day, drone photography, things like that. You're going to want to hashtag in your posts. And that's how you get seen, because people search via those hashtags on Instagram. So you want to put drone photography, drone photo of the day, things like that. And then when people look at those hashtags, they're going to see your photos, whether they follow you or not. So that's how you get seen and can get reposted. And in Instagram, that's how you build your followers. If you can get those local news organizations or Visit, Oklahoma or wherever you live, if they repost your photos, that gets you a massive following in return. I've had reposts that got me, 500 followers just from a repost from a local news organization, because they have 213,000.
Awesome.
So it can be huge for your account. And the only reason they found me is because I tagged them in the post, and I happened to tag 6 ABC photos in there. And so then they reposted it.
Are you tagging it? I don't, not to get too into detail, but are you tagging them like in the write-up of the post? Or are you tagging them like on the photo itself?
On the photo itself, where it's the second line. So you can put your caption in the field, and then I think it's the first or second thing down. It says tag friends. Gotcha. So that's where you click, and I'll tag all of the necessary ones.
Gotcha. So you'll do like the location, and then I think it says like in this photo.
Yes, exactly. Location, and I'll usually do Philly, or I've been shooting Temple University, which is in North Philadelphia recently. So I'll tag Temple University as the location, and I'll tag the university as well, because they'll repost the photo.
Yeah. That's awesome. Man, this is great. So we've been talking for, I don't know, roughly 45 minutes. So I don't want to keep you too much longer. We try to wrap it up. But
it goes by so fast.
I know. Well, I love doing this. I love hearing people's stories, and it's funny. Everybody's got such a unique story, but there's always, especially if people have listened to all of these, there are so many similarities where it's like, you just have to get out there and you just have to shoot and get better and do free work. You know what I mean? If it's specifically free work for a client, or just free work that you're putting out into the world, and then, you'll either get picked up if you're consistent and good, or if you're doing some kind of direct outreach, it'll hit. You know what I mean? The people who say, oh, there's too many Part 107 pilots and it's too saturated and this and that. I mean,
there's plenty of work out there.
They're just not doing the work, So
yeah.
And I think everybody that comes on this podcast is kind of evident of that. And and a lot of times I tell people, they're barking up the wrong tree, right? Like you're doing great work, and you're able to work with good clients that are worth working for. So I think that's pretty good. And it says a lot about the quality of your stuff too. So
thank you very much. And yeah, it just proves that if you keep working at it, they will come. I mean, if you just keep working and keep working hard, they will come. They will
that's
find
awesome.
you, they will see you. So,
well, for anybody who wants to find, I know we've been talking about your Instagram basically the whole show, but if anybody wants to get a hold of you or see more of your stuff, kind of what's the best way to see your stuff and reach you?
So the Instagram is Philly Drone Shots, all one word.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chris Dantonio of Philly Drone Shots. Again, love talking to Chris. The diversity of backgrounds and people that you get on the podcast, I just love it, right? It's like someone who's an executive chef who ends up building a huge Instagram following and does all this awesome work for big brands. It's just, I don't know. I don't want to say it's funny. It's not funny. It's really cool. But it's just always surprises me as what people can do with drones. And I'm always really impressed to see how hard people have worked to get to where they are. And, it's always fun to see those common threads, right? I've done dozens of these interviews now, and you always see these kind of common threads from the people who are successful and people who are actually making money with their drone and having fun and doing what they love, right? So if you haven't caught on, it's a lot of consistency, getting better, building your portfolio, doing some free work, and really just showing people what you can do on a regular basis. And it just ends up attracting people to you, and people hit you up for work, and it's a really great organic way to build. So, there are other strategies that you can use and things like that, but it seems to be that, playing the long game and doing it for yourself at first always seems to win out against, wanting to monetize and capitalize right away, because, you might get frustrated, or you might try to reach out to someone and they say no, and you get down and then you quit, right? But if you're just doing it for yourself at first and just building your portfolio and putting stuff out there and just having fun with it, you can keep in it longer and stay in the game and get better and attract those clients that you want. So really fun to learn those lessons along with the people on the podcast and hear about how everybody is out there crushing it. So hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks so much. Again, just a reminder, leave us a review and I'll send you a shirt. Email me, david@dronelaunchacademy.com. Fill out the little one question below to show us that you listened to the podcast and win some free goodies or a coaching call with Chris. And then 3 were the courses that we have, the $1 courses, Mavic Mini 101 and Drones 101. I want to make those available to you for only $1. There's no catch or anything. We don't try to get you to buy a bunch of other stuff too. It's just you can go in there, take them for $1, no catch, no subscription, nothing like that. Just trying to hook up my podcast listeners, because you all are the real true fans out there and people that really appreciate the content that we put out, and I really like all the kind words you guys have been sending our way. Kind of motivates us to keep going and keep putting stuff out there. So appreciate you, and hope you have a good one. Take care. See you later.